Welcome in, everybody. Thanks so much for spending part of your day with us. This is the Retirement Compass Radio Show. I'm your host, Mike Bauer, and every time we get together on this program, our goal is simple. Help you feel clear and confident about your retirement instead of guessing your way through it. Joining me, as always, the team from Stonebridge Wealth Systems, co-founders and financial advisors, Jeff Gove and Tim Kulhanek. Guys, welcome back. Always look forward to this conversation every week.
Yeah. It's good to be back, It just is.
Well, let's jump right into it. We've got a great show lined up, and I want to get right into talking about the robot overlords that are eventually going to take over the world, and we want to be very nice to them. I always say please and thank you to Alexa and Siri. I'm trying to get on their good side, but in terms of retirees, for years, millions of Americans have had a backup plan for retirement that if the market drops, if inflation creeps up, and boy, have we seen that, if they need a little extra income, they just go back to work. But AI, good old artificial intelligence, changing the way that companies hire. Jeff, do you feel like that safety net is still there the way it was before, given the fact that, and I'm using the salacious headline here, that AI is stealing our jobs?
Yeah, well, I suppose it depends on what kind of part-time work you want to do. I mean, if you're in marketing or something like that and you're going to do that part-time, it might be tough, or you at least need to learn how to use AI. So there are some jobs that, AI will take over. But when you look at like the service side or things you're doing with your hands, probably the things that you don't want to be doing in retirement, like manual labor and things like that, maybe don't want to or can't. Those are two additional issues. But at the end, do we want to have that as our plan, or should we just plan so you don't have to go back to work? I guess is a better question.
Tim, how do you help people plan for a retirement that doesn't necessitate a paycheck? I mean, obviously that's a plan B that a lot of people have had in the back of their minds, but you guys help people plan, whether you're 5 years out, 10 years out from retirement, but plan for a retirement that doesn't need that plan B.
Well, I think the key word there is paycheck. And, a lot of retirees, the reason why they underspend during their retirement years is because they don't have the stability of a paycheck and the psychological aspect of that reliable income. And I like to go back to the study where it was part of a study. There was a survey where they asked people, hey, would you rather have a lump sum of it's like $140,000, or would you rather have $10,000 a year guaranteed for the rest of your life to spend on discretionary items? And the overwhelming majority picked the guaranteed $10,000 a year. And the question we have to ask ourselves is why? And it comes down to predictability, reliability, and stability. So there's value from a confidence perspective of being able to spend money with intention if you know that another check is showing up the following year, the following week, the following month, because we've been conditioned over our working careers to anticipate that kind of regular systematic funding mechanism for our lifestyle. And so I think making sure that when we design plans here at Stonebridge for our clients, that we are trying to avoid the plan B by saying, well, we're going to create a paycheck that you can rely on as part of your retirement income. So every month this amount is going to hit the bank account. And you know what, if you really want it to be twice a month because that's what you were used to, we can facilitate that as well. But people will tend to spend more money even if they have the actuarial equivalent total dollar amount value. They tend to spend more money if the form of that wealth is in the form of recurring, predictable, guaranteed income.
You guys took me back to my high school football days, and I used to cover college and NFL football. Tim, when you mentioned all those abilities, that was coach speak. That was such a great coach line, as they would always say, your best ability is availability, and you just broke out the other abilities: dependability, reliability. I like that though. That kind of took me back.
Capability.
Yeah. Well, I never had that, which is why I'm talking with you guys rather than playing football for a career.
Right.
Well, plan B is changing. Let's fast forward, Jeff. 10 years from now, things haven't been great. Inflation's taken a bite out of savings, and we've seen this, obviously over the last years. And somebody says, I'll just work part-time. If it's, and you mentioned some of those entry-level office admin roles, marketing is the first thing that popped into your head, Jeff. But also one of the things, and you alluded to it a little bit, is those jobs that AI definitely is not taking. Hey, you're working at a lumber yard part-time, you're throwing around cinder blocks, or those are jobs that retirees don't necessarily want to go back to, or sometimes physically can't. And, now where exactly do you see those options, those plan Bs in the future, if we can't work some of those jobs, and if AI is taking some of those jobs away, and now we have to learn a whole new skill set just to get a job?
Well, I think there are still some opportunities. I've used my father-in-law as an example. He was the locksmith at UNK, University of Nebraska Kearney, for several years. And when he went to retire, they did everything that they could to keep him on even part-time, because they were going to have to train someone. They were going to have to teach them how to be a locksmith or find one, which it's not I guess a real wide trade. There's not a lot of locksmiths running around. So he was kind of able to name his price, within reason. He works a couple days a week during part of the year, and then in May they go to Colorado until September. So he's gone for a lot of the year, but he's got a job there. And it's something that he wants to do. He's not working because he has to. He's working because he wants to. And there is a real difference in that. Setting up a plan where if you want to work part-time, you can. So you're choosing to, rather than that plan B of, crap, I got to go back to work because I got to pay the bills, or whatever the case might be. It's a different situation when you're going to work. The other thing that I wanted to mention is, there is some value in working. From a planning perspective, I had some people in this last week that he just inherited an IRA, and it was around $130,000. He's got 10 years to take that money out. So while he's working, they're in the 12% tax bracket. So we're okay with that. We're taking out money from that IRA. We're paying 12% tax on it. But because he has wages, now we're making Roth contributions with that money. So it's a planning tool where we can get that money out because we have to, but then we can put it in a place that's really tax efficient, because there's really no other way to get that money from that inherited IRA to the Roth, because you can't convert it. So it's another thing that we can do. His wife isn't working, but she qualifies for a spousal Roth IRA. So if he makes enough money, we can max out Roth IRAs for both of them. So that's the value of, another piece of he's working because he wants to, but it also creates a planning opportunity.
And for anybody just tuning in right now, we're talking about the fact that Plan B might be changing for a lot of folks in the future, and there's some opportunities there, like Jeff just outlined. And this is exactly why a written plan matters more than a backup plan. If your retirement strategy is counting on a paycheck that might not be there, it's a conversation absolutely worth having sooner rather than later. Give the team at Stonebridge Wealth Systems a call, 866-295-5146. That's 866-295-5146. Or you can always head to stonebridgeiwm.com. Hey, Tim, so, we've heard for years, and people have talked about it for years, that working a few extra years can dramatically improve retirement. Is that advice becoming outdated in terms of, working a few extra years, not necessarily going back to work, but just pushing the goalpost back a little bit?
I don't think it's outdated. I just think it becomes more and more difficult because companies are always looking for ways to improve their bottom line. And part of that's going to be figuring out where the biggest, meatiest things they can cut exist. And a lot of times it's the big salaries, it's payroll. And, the folks that have been there, they're 65 years old. All of a sudden they find themselves like in a position where the company's like, man, we're paying them a lot. And the company matches a lot. And they add a lot of expense to our health insurance and like the benefits and all these different things. And so they start looking at, what does this mean for us long term, to have to continue to pay these big salaries. And as more and more of the population is 65 plus, which I think there's over 60 million Americans that are 65 plus right now, and there's a good chunk of them that are still working. That's just going to be more and more challenging, I think, as technology evolves and there's more opportunities for companies to replace. Now, let me kind of preface that with that discussion of like, oh, you know, it could be replaced. I think it's more likely that it'll be entry-level type things that'll be replaced because that's kind of the low-hanging fruit. And so, you know, regardless of what you think of it, if, you know, you have a situation where, you know, minimum wages continue to get pushed up. I'm not saying I'm against the minimum wage. Don't take this the wrong way. What I'm saying is some jobs might get priced out where it just doesn't make sense for a company to pay a specific wage for a task that can be done by a computer or by an inexpensive robot as robots become more ubiquitous and most likely more inexpensive. So I don't think it's outdated advice. I think it's just you need to be prepared. All right. You need to be prepared. Maybe 15 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, you could have said with confidence that like, hey, you know, they want me around. They do anything to keep me. But that's not as many jobs anymore. So you need to be prepared of saying, hey, look, if I can continue to work until I'm 68, great. I want to see what that looks like. But I want to make sure that if I woke up tomorrow with a pink slip in my locker, so to speak, back to the football reference, I'm not going to be like, oh, shoot, what am I going to do now? Because I met with a team at Stonebridge. I met with our experienced advisors, and they mathematically tested my plan and ensured that before I, you know, put my notice in or started worrying about whether or not, or depending on a paycheck until 68, my plan has been mathematically tested and it's designed to work even if I end up being retired sooner than I had originally planned.
Mathematically figuring it out is incredibly important. And if today's conversation has you second guessing your own backup plan, it's worth a real conversation. Begin that conversation today with the team at Stonebridge Wealth Systems. Give Tim, Jeff, and the team a call, 866-295-5146. You can always go online to stonebridgeiwm.com or again, dial 866-295-5146. We'll be back with more on the Retirement Compass radio show next.
Hi, I'm Tim Kulhanek with Stonebridge Wealth Systems. You've worked hard and saved for retirement, but how much of it will you actually get to keep? If your savings are in a traditional IRA or 401k, Uncle Sam has a claim on every withdrawal you make. And with tax rates expected to rise in the future, the cost of waiting could be significant. A Roth conversion may help lower your future tax burden. Want to know what your liability could look like? Scan the QR code or visit StonebridgeRothQuiz.com to take our Roth conversion quiz today and see if a conversion makes sense for you.
Thanks so much for joining us on the Retirement Compass radio show. I'm Mike Bauer. Joining me, as always, from Stonebridge Wealth Systems, co-founders and financial advisors Jeff Gove and Tim Kulhanek. It's always good to have the conversation with the guys and learn. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I learn something new every week. And well, I did a little bit of homework myself here. New research from Gallup and Edward Jones asked a question that doesn't get asked enough. It's not how much money do you have, but do your finances actually support the life you want? I feel like we talk about this on the show quite a bit, and only about 1 in 6 Americans said yes. Only about 1 in 6 Americans said yes. Sorry about that. Jeff, Tim, the other 5 out of 6, man, we have to look into that. So one of the things I always think is interesting about these studies is they found out that people are, quote, financially fulfilled. Jeff, what the heck does that mean when somebody says they're financially fulfilled, asked in a survey like this?
Well, I think it could mean a lot of different things, but the thing that sticks out to me is, are they concerned about having enough money? You know, are they worried? Are they being kept up at night with the thoughts of running out of money? I looked into, tried to boil this down and see, okay, what gets us to that 1 in 6? 56% of retirees fear outliving their money. So I think that contributes to it.
Yeah.
I'm looking at my notes here. I wrote down a lot of statistics. Only 29%, this is an Allianz Research Center study, only 29% of retirees over 55 have a written retirement withdrawal strategy. 29%. So, when you look at some of these statistics, like I said, when we boil that down, it explains why, only 1 in 6 is feeling fulfilled, because they're worried about running out of money. 38% of retirees are already spending less than they want to in order to preserve or protect their nest egg. So a lack of a formal plan. So they're underspending, but they're fearing overspending. That's what a written retirement plan does for you, is it gives you that freedom to spend your money with confidence. And obviously we think that's really important here.
I mean, almost giving, a license to actually use that nest egg that you've spent so many years to do that. I want to ask you the same question, Tim, in terms of when you see a study like this, Gallup, Edward Jones, asking people if the finances they have actually support the life they want, and only 1 out of 6 say yes. So when they say somebody is quote unquote financially fulfilled, what does that mean to you, Tim, when you hear financially fulfilled?
I was just reading what the study suggested, and it's really hard to quantify because it's a feeling. It's not a dollar amount, and that makes it difficult. But honestly, my thoughts go back to 2 things. One, Jeff, what percentage of retirees have a written financial plan or written withdrawal strategy?
29%.
Wow. So 29%. And this study covered 5,075 U.S. adults. One of the most comprehensive looks at the emotional side of financial life in recent years. And they consistently pointed, this is, I think, the key here, folks. I've been talking about this for years. I've been talking about the book Happy Money at my seminars. I've been talking about how, look, it's not about, essentially there's 5 ways that you can interact with your money that'll give you the most enjoyment or fulfillment, according to a meta-analysis. And the number 1 is buying experiences. So in other words, it's not about buying stuff. Well, this study says Americans consistently pointed to experiences and relationships, not possessions or account balances, as the source of financial joy. Well, it's really hard to buy experiences if you don't have a written plan that's going to give you the confidence, the clarity to give you the license to spend the money, because you know that the plan, as I said at the end of the first segment, has been mathematically tested and that math works. I can do that. And so, to me, I think we just found the solution, right? The fix is you go in and you get a plan put together that gives you that confidence to spend, and you use the tools that are available. Again, our job as financial advisors, as fiduciaries, is to make sure that we have a duty of loyalty to make sure that we put your interests ahead of our own. But the other thing is a duty of care, which I think kind of gets forgotten about the fiduciary standard, which is we need to be skilled guides when it comes to utilizing the right tools to get the job done as effectively, efficiently as possible. And really, that's what this is about, is people don't have the confidence because they don't have a guide that's landed the plane before. And that's what we're trying to provide by doing the show and doing our events in the community and the TV program and all those different things, because we know that there's a solution out there for this problem. You just got to be willing to accept it, because it's kind of being offered to you, and it's are you willing to take it?
And I'm sure there's many folks out there listening right now that felt like, hey, I'm doing everything right on paper. I'm doing everything right, but you still don't feel settled. You're not alone. That's exactly what Jeff and Tim are talking about. Having a written plan is designed to fix that feeling and give you a license to use that hard-earned nest egg that you've built over so many years and create those experiences. Buying experiences, as you mentioned, the number 1 of the 5 ways to actually interact with your money in retirement. Give the team at Stonebridge Wealth Systems a call, and they'll be able to help you put together a written plan that'll allow you to, feel financially free and feel confident in doing the things you want to do in retirement with that written plan. 866-295-5146. That number again, 866-295-5146. Have your calendar ready when you call, because you're going to get right on to somebody's calendar, whether it's Jeff, Tim, a member of the team at Stonebridge Wealth Systems. 866-295-5146. And if you're thinking about, hey, am I even ready for retirement yet? You can always go online. They have a great reality check quiz, stonebridgeretirement.net. One of the things, Jeff, that they also found in this study is a big gap between fulfilled and stressed Americans when it comes to you guys, when it comes to working with an advisor. What does that show to you?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you asked that, because it's something I wanted to add on to what Tim said. We do workshops, across the state of Nebraska on a lot of different topics, whether it's taxes, estate planning, Social Security, general retirement. And sometimes people will come in, they sit through our workshop on estate planning, And at the end, they'll tell you this was really good, a lot of really good information, but I've got a financial advisor, so I'm all set here. And the first question that pops into my mind is, okay, if you are all set here, why are you here? Why are you here getting educated on things that you are already all set on? And having an advisor, I think, is important. Vanguard research shows that an advisor can add up to 3% per year in return to your portfolio. And there's a lot of reasons for that, whether it's, being the counselor that keeps you in the market when it gets bumpy. Lots of different reasons. But what I think is interesting is for retirees, 61% of retirees have a financial advisor. So if 61% of retirees have a financial advisor, why are 56% of retirees fearing running out of money? The answer for that is, for those that are working with an advisor, only 32% have a written plan. 25% have a clear withdrawal strategy. So the financial advisor, it's important, but it isn't the answer. Like Tim said, maybe we solved the problem here. The solution isn't the advisor. The solution is the plan. So if you have a financial advisor, whether you come to our workshop, you watch us on TV, listen to the radio show, and that's the reason you're not calling, again, that's not what's going to put you over the hump to feeling confident about your future. It's the plan, having a written plan that says we're testing mathematically to see what are the odds of you running out of money. What are the biggest pitfalls that you're going to face in retirement? We can identify those before they actually happen, so then they can be addressed.
Tim, it's kind of piggybacking on what Jeff said there. So, and breaking out all the numbers and doing some serious homework, Jeff, there's a lot of overlap there in terms of people who aren't satisfied that mathematically probably already have an advisor there. So, Tim, if somebody gives you guys a call at Stonebridge at 866-295-5146 and says, hey, I want a second opinion. I'm working with somebody. I've worked with them for 15, 20 years. I just started with them. They're the advisor that my folks worked with, and I just kind of inherited that experience. If somebody wants a second look at their existing plan with an advisor, what does that conversation look like from your side of things, Tim?
Our job, I think, the first appointment is just to kind of listen, ask questions, and listen. Because, like, the thing that I'm taking away from what Jeff just said is too often what people get when they go in and meet with maybe a financial advisor is maybe a few questions. Okay, let me take a look at your statements. Wow, no wonder you're upset. This is terrible. Everything's awful. You've done it all wrong. If you've been averaging about 7%, but shoot, you could have been averaging 8 or 8.5%, 9% if you'd been with us. It's too bad you didn't come in here earlier, but at least you finally stopped making these mistakes, and now you're here, and we can fix all of it. And then there's this whiz bang type of financial product that's offered that's going to solve all the problems, but Jeff just gave the data. Clearly, that's not solving the problem. And again, a lot of it comes down to, do people have the confidence? Because this biggest group is this financially conflicted, where they're like, yeah, I think I'm maybe okay. I think the people that Jeff talked to, that person I would put in that category of financially conflicted. On paper, they think they're doing the right things. They've got a financial advisor, but clearly there's some things that they're unsettled on, that's keeping them up at night. And so what it looks like is us listening, asking a lot of questions. We have a defined process. We call it the NAVI process: needs analysis, vision, implementation. It's 3 steps. The first step is listening, gathering information. It's about your goals, your dreams, your aspirations for retirement. The second, so kind of a discovery meeting. The second is our strategies based off of your unique financial situation, not some canned, boilerplate type of approach that we use. It's custom designed for every single person that comes in the door. And so that's really, I think, what I'd encourage folks to consider is there's no cost, no obligation. The worst thing that can happen is, you come in and you spend an hour of your time, you find out that maybe you're doing a lot of things right. And I guess the beautiful thing about this is, rather than me just saying, oh, we'll tell you, the math will tell you. I don't have to tell you. We can make it objective, and the math will tell you if you're in a good position or not. And then you can make a decision based off an informed position.
Needs analysis, vision, and implementation. Did I get that right in my notes, Tim?
You got it. Oh, yeah.
Nice. All right.
Good.
Well, if If you need analysis, vision, and implementation in your plan, and specifically a written plan is going to get it done for you. If you're feeling a little more conflicted than fulfilled, as we talked about what it means to be financially fulfilled, let's change that. Give the team at Stonebridge Wealth Systems a call, 866-295-5146. They'll run your current plan or build you a new plan that is mathematically tested to withstand and sustain whatever the future holds. 866-295-5146 are always available online at stonebridgeiwm.com.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Gove with Stonebridge Wealth Systems. Are you taking too much risk with your retirement or not enough? Most people really aren't sure. That's why we created the Stonebridge Risk Quiz. In just a few minutes, it helps you discover your personal risk tolerance. Your score could reveal why your investments sometimes feel too aggressive or maybe too conservative. It's quick, simple, and eye-opening. Scan the QR code or visit stonebridgeriskquiz.com to see if your money matches your mindset.
Thanks so much for listening to the Retirement Compass Radio Show. I'm Mike Bauer, and joining me today, co-founders and financial advisors Jeff Gove and Tim Kulhanek of Stonebridge Wealth Systems, conveniently located all across Nebraska with offices in Kearney, Lincoln, Grand Island, and Omaha. And Jeff, you work with a lot of farm and ranch families, and one of the things I think that has popped up in our conversations is that many of them tend to keep a large amount of their savings in the bank, in CDs sometimes. Why do you feel that tends to happen, and is that always the best place for it to sit?
Well, I think that there are several reasons that it happens. Number one, we should have some money in the bank. Maybe they're using it for, operating. Sometimes the bank will use it. Excuse me. Sometimes the bank will use it as collateral for a loan or something like that. But a lot of times we see some of this money piling up in a money market account or in a CD that, farmers have gone through tough times, where really good farming economy and really bad farming economy, where we get kind of really conservative on the cash side. So I want to have this in the bank so I don't lose it, which kind of makes sense, that they would lean that way. But the consequences of that, when we look at a tax return and we see that you had, $80,000 in taxable interest from a CD that you didn't take out, but now you have to pay tax on it. And there's other implications to that. You're paying tax on that CD income. Maybe it's causing Social Security to become taxed. Maybe you're paying more for your Medicare because of that income. There are other options. Instead of getting income from a CD, you could invest in something that's going to give you a long-term capital gain, and that would only be if you sold it. So you buy fund XYZ, it grows. You don't pay any tax unless there's interest coming off or dividends. You would pay tax when you sold it. If you never sell it, then it's going to go to your kids. They get a step up in basis, just like our farmers' farm ground. When they pass away, their kids inherit it, they get a step up in basis. So no long-term capital gains have to be paid. It's going to be the same on that investment. However, it does still give you liquidity. So you could sell that investment, then pay long-term capital gains or short-term, depending on how long you held it. But then it's a choice. It's not the CD. It isn't a choice. You put the money in the CD, you're going to pay tax. You put it in something like that, it's going to, and this isn't advice, it's just an alternative, but you're choosing to pay tax if you needed the money for something. If you're in the 12% or below tax bracket, you don't pay tax on long-term capital gains. So there's some advantages there. But those are a couple things you could do with that CD money and still keep it safe and liquid.
I mean, safe and liquid sounds like music to a lot of people's ears. I'm sure, Tim, having too much money sitting in CDs, I've just learned, can actually work against a retirement plan. Just kind of, Tim, your thoughts on some alternatives, that Jeff had touched on here, but what are some other alternatives to having a whole bunch of money in the bank with CDs?
I think I'd rather just point out that the downstream effects are really the problem. A lot of your credits, your Medicare premiums, your taxes for additional income-based taxes like the net investment income tax, provisional income, which would be Social Security. A lot of those things, if you're not 65, if you have Affordable Care Act, the ACA for your health insurance, all those are based off of your adjusted gross income or a variation thereof. And that CD interest just piles right on top of it. And it makes your life more expensive unnecessarily. You think you're paying tax on just the interest, but that's not really what it's costing you. It's costing you a whole lot more oftentimes than just what you see. It's not as intuitive as you think. Our team is skilled and has been trained to look at a tax return, understand what the problem is, diagnose it, and prescribe the solution. We'd like to do it for you.
Don't make your life expensive unnecessarily and unintentionally, potentially. If you're not sure whether your savings are working as hard as they could be, maybe you've got a bunch of money in CDs and you want to find out what that formula looks like, especially when it comes to taxes and some of that, you can give the team at Stonebridge Wealth Systems a call. They'll help you sort it through. Give them a call, 866-295-5146. You can always find them online at stonebridgeiwm.com. Or, again, pick up the phone and call 866-295-5146 to reach Stonebridge Wealth Systems with offices in Omaha, Grand Island, Lincoln, and Kearney.
Hi, I'm Tim Kulhanek with Stonebridge Wealth Systems. You've worked hard and saved for retirement, but how much of it will you actually get to keep? If your savings are in a traditional IRA or 401k, Uncle Sam has a claim on every withdrawal you make. And with tax rates expected to rise in the future, the cost of waiting could be significant. A Roth conversion may help lower your future tax burden. Want to know what your liability could look like? Scan the QR code or visit StonebridgeRothQuiz.com to take our Roth conversion quiz today and see if a conversion makes sense for you.
Hey, thanks so much for joining us on the Retirement Compass Radio Show. I'm Mike Bauer, joined today by Jeff Gove and Tim Kulhanek, co-founders and financial advisors of Stonebridge Wealth Systems. Offices conveniently located all across Nebraska, Grand Island, Lincoln, Omaha, and Kearney. And, of course, conveniently located online at stonebridgeiwm.com. And, gentlemen, there's an interesting trend happening with the youngest generation of workers. These planned extended breaks from working life. Maybe they call it a gap year. Sometimes they try to fancy it up and call it a micro retirement. But at the same time, you've got boomers who are already retired that are heading back to work. Jeff, what do you make of this incredible juxtaposition here of that you got some youngsters that are retiring and you got some folks that have worked for a long time that are actually getting back to work?
Well, I hope the young people that are doing this are planning well. You know, I mean, obviously they're saving some money so they can do it, but are they also saving for their future? But it kind of explains, if this is happening in big numbers, it explains a continued problem with Social Security, where you have a lack of workers supporting that baby boomer generation, that's going to create more stress on the Social Security system. But yeah, I mean, if they're taking micro retirement, it's funny how we can create these new words and, make it, I don't want to go to work is really what it is.
I'd rather be lazy and lay on the couch.
Yes. No,
that's what it sounds like to me.
Tim.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to call it micro retirement, but really I just wanted to go to Oktoberfest. Yeah, that's
right.
Right.
Just call it what it is.
I'm not going to lie. I did do that years and years ago. I took a gap year in between jobs and I was like, you know what? I don't have everything going on full time.
Micro retirement.
Yep. But we hadn't invented the term micro retirement yet. I was just saying, I don't want to get another job yet. I've saved up enough to go bucket list item and go to Oktoberfest. So I did that with friends. And Tim, I should have called it micro retirement. I could have trademarked the term. Darn it.
You could have, or you could have said, you could have made something else up. You could say, I'm on a mandatory hold. Yeah, no, it's mandatory.
Really, I just wanted to go have fun.
Whose rule is that?
Yeah. So let's just say somebody is, and honestly, like for me at the time, I felt irresponsible. But if we're going to call it such a responsible sounding term like micro retirement, what does that look like in practice, Tim? So like somebody in their 20s or 30s, and maybe for someone listening right now, they've got, the next generation, they've got a kid that is considering doing this. What does that look like in practice in terms of taking a year off or an extended amount of time, a planned intentional career gap, not unemployment, but hey, if you're not bringing money in and you're spending money, that can have downstream effects when that person in their 20s or 30s does eventually get to retirement.
Yeah, so just looking at some of these studies, this says that there was a Forbes article citing a survey of 6,000 people where 45% expected to work past the average retirement age. Average retirement age is actually not 65. The average person retires a few years earlier than that. And here's the crazy thing. 3 in 4 had done little to no financial planning. Well, micro-retirement, it says, is planned intentional career gap, not unemployment. Again, like it feels like we're just making stuff up as we...
Right.
No, I planned it to be it was intentional unemployment. Therefore, I'm not unemployed. I'm micro-retired. No, you're unemployed. I don't care what you call it. You're unemployed. I don't know how you're covering your expenses. You're probably mooching off of your parents. You're probably running up credit card debt. You're probably not at all in a position to be doing what you're doing. And you're probably going to regret it later on because you also have student loans and all these other things that you feel like are optional. You feel like the way that things have been done by your parents' generation and the generation before that was a list of suggestions that you just happen to not agree with. And like the problem is, I think, multifaceted. Jeff hit a key one is there's not near enough people paying into our social programs, Medicare, Social Security. Those are the 2 biggest line items in the budget. So if the government brings in $5.2 trillion from taxes, fees, and surcharges, but they spend that much on Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, interest on the debt, we have a problem. And the other thing that I think a lot of us are finding. So I met just last night, I had dinner with some friends of mine from church. We met at Brewski's for some Philly cheesesteaks. Not Brewski's, just Philly cheesesteaks, okay? And it was delicious, by the way. Motivation, what motivates a lot of the Zoomer generation is not what motivated us, right? So like a couple of the guys, they're looking to maybe like get to a different field. They'd like to find a different career path. They're in that point of life where it's like, okay, I'm like 40, early to mid 40s, but I'm not finding fulfillment in what I've been doing. Maybe I want to, for the remainder of my career, go a little bit different direction. I'm willing to work. I'm willing to get up at 5 a.m. if I have to. I'm willing to, do what I have to do to make sure I can provide for my family. Because that's what my number one motivation is. I want to provide for my family. And you talk to him, and one of the guys is in kind of a sales field, and he's talking about the challenge they have in finding people and how he's like, we could offer all the money in the world, and like it just doesn't motivate them. They want more time off. Like that's the number one thing that a lot of them are concerned about is I just don't. How much time do I not have to spend here is what I want to know, And so I don't know what the solution is because it is really a generational type of thing and it's a cultural, I guess, values-based thing. And I think you see that shifting in our culture. A lot of people think, oh, well, I want to be more like in Europe where they, don't work near as much. And that's fine, but there's other consequences that come with that. And a lot of it has to do with economic consequences. It's going to be a lot more difficult for people to, if you're not working, the other thing you're not doing is putting into your 401k. Part of what's helped, like from a demographics perspective, propel the market is we had, this 18-year generation from people born from 1946 to 1964, this massive baby boomer generation, and they've been at their peak earning years, and a lot of them have been maxing out their 401ks. Well, when that stops, all of a sudden you go from an environment where you had forced contributions, or maybe not forced, but a lot of times these 401ks anymore, that's automatic contributions going into their 401ks, being invested into equities, helping support stock prices, because it's not that complicated, folks. If more people are buying, prices go up. If more people are selling, prices go down. Well, now you're shifting to where, the oldest baby boomers reached age 80 this year. The youngest will reach age 65, I think, in 2029, 3 years from now. And the youngest will reach their required beginning date in 2039, it would be. So then you have a huge 60, 50 million people, whatever population of people who not only aren't working, but they're actively being forced to take money out of their accounts. And they've got probably, 20, 10, 15, $20 trillion of retirement accounts that is going to be forced to come out. So when you think about it, like, hey, there's a shifting, these are some economic and just demographic headwinds that we're going to be faced with. And if these younger people are on what do we call it? Micro retirements.
Yes, micro retirement.
Or
Fancy
whatever
word.
we're calling it now.
Yeah.
Unemployed.
Sabbaticals. Intentionally unemployed. They're also not putting into their 401ks. They're probably taking money out early of their 401ks because that's a great idea. Paying penalties and taxes. And all of a sudden you can see where this is headed is potentially not a very good place.
Well, if you want to make sure that you're in a good place, whether you're approaching retirement or, my goodness, I mean, if you're in your 20s and you're considering a micro retirement, aka intentional unemployment is what it sounds like. Just, I don't want to work for a while. Give the team at Stonebridge Wealth Systems a call, 866-295-5146. That's 866-295-5146. You can always go online, stonebridgeiwm.com. Get started with a complimentary first visit. So, Jeff, I want to double back a little bit. Let's say that somebody listening right now, they're in retirement or nearing retirement, but they do have somebody, a child in their 20s or 30s that is looking at this micro retirement. How can you and the team at Stonebridge help a family bridge the gap between two, and Tim just mentioned values, two very different when it comes to values as well, generational mindsets around money, around values, or is this a case where you've seen people like, okay, I'm going to force my kid to come to the meeting with me or something? Like, how does that work out if someone is concerned about, hey, Timmy over here wants to take a year off. I got to talk to Jeff and Tim.
Yeah, I mean, we're always more than welcome to sit down with, kids, grandkids, and give some guidance. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a different mindset, probably than what the clients have, the retired couple have. So yeah, sitting down and helping them, develop a plan. But also the other side is making sure they understand the consequences of whatever decision they're going to make. Like we've talked about on the show, the numbers don't lie. So, I mean, if they want to retire at 50, because I'm guessing that probably comes along with the micro retirement is, I want to have these gap years and I also want to retire at 50. Well, here's what that looks like. Yes, it's possible, or no, it isn't, or you better really save and you better make a lot of money in order to make that happen. Yeah, I mean, we can put together a plan, look at, again, the consequences of whatever decision. And sometimes it's, I want to make this big purchase. I want to, buy a car that I can't afford, or do I pay off these credit cards, or, I've got $25,000 in the bank. What do I do with it? Or my grandkid or child does. There's a lot of different questions that way, but yeah, we can help put together a plan and show you what it looks like for the future.
Boomer or Zoomer, those are the Gen Z. Those are the ones that came up with this whole micro retirement thing. No matter which generation you're in, a plan built around your life and not somebody else's script is what actually works. And the team at Stonebridge Wealth Systems, whatever your situation is, they're going to work with you to build a plan that's built around your life. Give them a call or visit stonebridgeiwm.com. The number is 866-295-5146. That is 866-295-5146. We'll be back with more on the Retirement Compass radio show.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Gove with Stonebridge Wealth Systems. Are you taking too much risk with your retirement or not enough? Most people really aren't sure. That's why we created the Stonebridge Risk Quiz. In just a few minutes, it helps you discover your personal risk tolerance. Your score could reveal why your investments sometimes feel too aggressive or maybe too conservative. It's quick, simple, and eye-opening. Scan the QR code or visit stonebridgeriskquiz.com to see if your money matches your mindset.
Thanks so much for listening to the Retirement Compass radio show. I'm Mike Bauer, joined by Tim Kulhanek and Jeff Gove, co-founders and financial advisors at Stonebridge Wealth Systems. You can reach them at 866-295-5146, online at stonebridgeiwm.com. And you can set up a meeting in person at Kearney, Lincoln, Grand Island, and Omaha offices, conveniently located all across the state. All right, I don't want to yell fire in the theater, but I do want to talk about FIRE here. FIRE, Financial Independence, Retire Early. A nice little acronym. It's a popular movement online. You see a bunch of influencers who are doing this. They save aggressively, living in squalor pretty much, and investing heavily, reach a point that work becomes optional. They don't want to work anymore, and they can apparently potentially do so and retire well before the traditional retirement age, the financial independence, retire early. So I want to look at like the inspiration. Where did this come from? Some of the blind spots. Jeff, why has this FIRE movement become so popular, if it really has, or it's just what I'm seeing online?
Well, I think it's a perfect conversation to piggyback off the last segment with the micro retirement.
Yeah.
Maybe those go hand in hand. I don't know.
Boomers and Zoomers. Yeah.
Yep. I think to me, it's okay. I mean, if you want to retire early, especially if you have a plan to do it, if you save aggressively, you do all of the things that you need to do to retire when you want to, and you can live on what your portfolio will produce. Because if you're going to retire at 50, even if Social Security is there, which, I don't know that it is for somebody that's going to retire at 50 in the future. But that's 12 years minimum that you're going to be retired without Social Security. So you're going to have to fund the whole thing. I mean, you need to plan that way that there's not going to be any outside support. Even if you did contribute to it, it may not be there. So it's going to be income that you need from your portfolio. The other thing is, where are you going to draw from? What type of accounts did you put your money in? Did you put it in 401k? Is it in a Roth? Is it traditional? Is it just in a brokerage account? You got to have a plan and have the right money in the right accounts, because there's going to be tax implications and penalties if you take it out too early. So those are all things that you need to think about. There's also other consequences, that we'll talk about, I'm sure later in the segment, that you need to recognize before you pull the trigger on this.
Yeah, I mean, whether your goal is retiring early, which sounds great, hey, cool, retired 50, you do your job, you say, but that's great. Jeff, you point out the fact that, let's say that you've checked all the boxes, you've saved aggressively, you've invested in the right places, and you're retiring at 50, you still have 12 years until you can potentially start claiming Social Security. And for anybody, whatever your timeline looks like, if it's financial independence, retire early, or you want to wait and keep working, the risks are essentially the same, right? It's inflation. It's going to be healthcare costs. It's going to be actually funding your retirement and creating your own income stream, a written plan that's stress tested for the long haul. You can always go online at stonebridgeiwm.com or give the team at Stonebridge a call, 866-295-5146. So Tim, part of the financial independence, retire early, this FIRE movement is extreme saving, right? Just putting everything away, 70% of your income. Emotionally, I'm sure that can be kind of a weird element to it as well, if somebody's going to do that for years just for the payoff later.
You see these people online too, whether it's, they're on Instagram, they're on TikTok, they're on YouTube, and they're talking about how they're doing these things. And again, if that's what they want to do, that's fine. It's up to them. The question I think I have is, like, what's their plan for what they're going to do with their time if they're 45 and they're retired? It's a foreign concept for me, to be completely, transparent. If I take a few days off, I guess I actually shouldn't say, I don't think I ever have. Like, let's say you're on vacation. It's different when you're on vacation. Retirement isn't the same thing as being on a perpetual vacation, right? Because you still just you're going to spend time where you're at your house and just doing normal things. And, I think back to when I was growing up, my dad had Wednesdays off when he worked at Midway Chevrolet. And, that was a day that he got a lot of stuff done, right? He mowed the yard, sweep the floors, mop, dishes. He always made the meal on Wednesdays, and his specialty was putting a roast in the oven. He was really good at that, And then I later found out that that there's not There's not a secret to doing that. You just kind of put the roast in the oven, right? But it was so good, you know. He was still did a great job, and that's not every day though. You got that done on your day off because you didn't have the other days to do that. So what are you going to do with the rest of your time? And you know, we often talk about we talk about longevity being a risk multiplier. Where, hey, look, a lot of people underestimate how long they're going to be in retirement. They're actually end up being in retirement for 25 or 30 years. So they underestimate the amount of savings they're going to need, and they underestimate the amount of challenges and headwinds that they'll face. Because the longer you're in retirement, the more chance there's going to be market declines, economic upheaval, legislative changes, rules changes to the way that different programs work, changes to Social Security and Medicare, all these different things that can happen. Well, the same applies if you're retiring at 45 or 50. Like all of a sudden now there could be 40 years that you don't have a paycheck. You got to make your money last a long time, more time for inflation and interest rate fluctuations to have an impact, more time for, all of a sudden your time frame for sequence of returns risk gets moved up dramatically. So there's a lot of different things I think that you got to keep in mind. But to me, the biggest thing is, well, like if you're going to do this, what are you going to do with your time? What do you plan to do to keep your body and mind sharp? Because if you retire for 20 years and then decide you want to re-enter the workforce, like your skill set has been left in the past. Now, you're going to have to try to, if all you were doing is just kind of, hanging out and ignoring, the changing of the economic landscape.
I mean, just hanging out and gaming, just you're going to hang out and game, and you're going to do that when you're retired too. I mean, no. But in all seriousness, you guys have put together a great resource online at stonebridgeretirement.net. I mean, simply, it's a retirement reality check. You go on, it's a couple minutes, a comprehensive evaluation to gauge your preparedness for that significant transition into retirement, whether it's closer to 65 when Medicare is available, and a lot of people eye that, or you're trying to do this financial independence, retire early, the FIRE movement. Again, that's a great resource at stonebridgeretirement.net. Of course, you can always give the team at Stonebridge a call as well. Set up a no cost, no obligation visit with them. 866-295-5146. That's 866-295-5146. They have offices in Kearney, Lincoln, Grand Island, and Omaha. Jeff, is there maybe a benefit to something like this? Or even in the last segment, we talked about micro retirement and the FIRE movement. And, there's all these things that, at least to me, sometimes sound like a bad idea. Like, oh, I'm going to micro retire, AKA not work for a while. But just the fact that people are talking more about finances, is there, a rising tide raises all boats kind of situation here, where that just because of more awareness out there, that can lead to healthier financial habits overall?
I hope so.
Yeah, me too.
I hope more people are putting more in their 401k and in their Roth IRAs and doing the right things. And it could be so they can retire early. It could be so they can retire at 65 or 64 or whatever it is. But yeah, I mean, hopefully it's trending that way. The other thing to think about, for some people, it might be, I want to retire from my career at 50. It doesn't mean I'm going to stop working, but I just don't want to do that anymore. Like I'm doing that because it provides a good wage. At 50, I want to go be able to do the things that I care about. That's a totally different conversation than, I just want to quit working. I just want to be retired. Because retiring at 50, I mean, we run our plans out to age 95. So we got 45 years. You're a little over halfway, to the end, if you lived to 95. So you better have saved well, because you're going to spend a ton of money in retirement. But again, if you retire at 50 and then you have the resources, or you live well within your means, you don't have any debt. I mean, if you wanted to retire at 50, that's huge. You don't have a house payment. You don't have any credit card debt, no student loans, no kids' student loans. You could probably do it from your career. But again, go get the job that that you've wanted to do. Maybe it's volunteering some and supplementing that with an entry level, with less stress, full-time job.
I mean, if there's one thing we've learned today, or at least that I've learned today, is that there's a big difference between just escaping reality, calling it a micro-retirement, putting an acronym on it like FIRE, financial independence, retire early, and actually achieving real financial independence and having an ability to be fulfilled in your retirement in that time that you are now spending the money that you spent all those years to earn. Guys, that's going to do it for this edition of the Retirement Compass Radio Show. For anybody listening, find out what your version of financial freedom looks like. It deserves a real plan behind it, and the team at Stonebridge will help you build that plan, mathematically tested. Give them a call right now, 866-295-5146. That's 866-295-5146. Remember, hope is not a plan. A portfolio is not a plan. A plan is a plan, and the team at Stonebridge will help you put together a plan. StonebridgeIWM.com is the location online. The locations in Kearney, Lincoln, Grand Island, and Omaha is where you'll be available to meet with them in person. Jeff, Tim, and for the entire team at Stonebridge, thanks so much. We'll see everybody next week.